Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Tianan and today I'm going to be talking about some anticipated releases from the months of September to December 2023. Now I have 24 books that I would like to talk to you guys about today. They are a mix of different genres, age categories and formats as well, so hopefully there is a book in here for everyone. As there are so many books to talk about today though, I'm not going to go too in depth into the synopses. I just want to get this video across to you guys so that you can possibly discover a book that you would like to pre-order for yourselves. These are all books that I do have pre-ordered. They are all pre-ordered through Waterstones. Every time Waterstones hosts double stamps, I of course take that opportunity to pre-order some books, and I have gone through my order list, compiled this one for you today, and I'm very excited to let you guys know about the upcoming book releases. Before we dive into the video, I do just want to quickly mention that I'm filming this on the 2nd of September 2023. I am going to include September releases in this video, even though I believe this video will be going live on my channel later in the month, just because, as I mentioned, I want to let you guys know about all the upcoming releases, and if they have since been published, you can of course check them out for yourselves anyway and decide whether you would like to purchase them. With all that being said though, it is time to dive into the books. As I mentioned, I am starting off focusing on the books that are being released in September, and the first book that I would like to talk about today is Talonsister by Jen Williams. This is coming out on the 12th of September and it's a new adult fantasy book. Now the synopsis of this one is very long, as it does talk about a few characters, so I feel like I am going to read this to you just because I honestly don't know how I would sum it up otherwise. So it says, when Soldier 11 was transformed into a herald, a magic killing machine in the Imperium's brutal conquests, her mind was wiped clean. But strange visions show glimpses of the ancient and mysterious island of Brittleton. Now with the war won and the Imperium satisfied, she wants to find out who she really is. Envoy Kateo has done a number of important little jobs for the Imperium, most of them nasty, all of them in the shadows. His newest assignment is to escort the bonecrafter Gynid Tylee as she travels across the Imperium. But Tylee's ambition alarms even Kato, and her conviction that she has found a new source of Titan bones buried deep in the earth could lead to another, even bloodier war. Innes was raised by the Griffins and has never seen another human face. She lives wild on Brittleton with her Talonsister Truk. By choosing not to kill Innes when she was just a baby, the Griffins may have doomed themselves, because the girl's past is coming for her and it carries a lethal blade. Now you can probably tell why I needed to read you guys the synopsis. It sounds like a very complex adult high fantasy novel, but I am definitely here for it. I haven't read anything from Jen Williams before either, so she will be a new to me author, which is always exciting, and even though I probably won't get to this one this year, I am very excited to have it nonetheless. Then the next date I have is the 14th of September, and there are a lot of books being released on this date, you guys. So the first book I'm going to mention is The Last Devil to Die, which is the next book in the Thursday Murder Club series by Richard Osman. I have ordered the Waterstones exclusive edition of this one. I'm not sure if that one is still available, so definitely check it out if you're interested, but I do believe it has some stenciled sprayed edges, so you know I had to make sure to snag myself a copy. You guys know I love a good murder mystery, and I feel like the Thursday Murder series is one that I'm gonna love. I haven't actually started it yet, which I'm embarrassed to say, but I do have really high hopes for it. I'm not too sure whether I can fit the first book onto my November TBR. Hopefully I can, because as I mentioned, I would love to get to them, and that way I can read a book a month across 4 months and get all caught up as well. As The Last Devil to Die is the 4th book in this series, I obviously can't tell you too much about that one. However, in the first book we follow a group of unlikely friends who live in a peaceful retirement village. However, once a week they all get together and try to investigate unsolved murders. But when a brutal killing takes place on their very doorstep, the Thursday Murder Club are thrown into a real-life investigation, and even though these characters might be pushing 80 years old, they still have some tricks up their sleeves. I just feel like this is going to be a very wholesome, humorous take on the murder mystery genre, which is why I think I'm going to enjoy it so much. For those of you guys who don't know, I really enjoy reading my Agatha Christie books, and we do have a specific set of books that follow an elderly lady called Miss Marple, and they're just brilliant because being an elderly lady, she tends to be overlooked. However, this gives her the perfect cover to go around asking questions, being nosy, and ultimately piece together what's been going on and she ends up solving the murders. So I do love the idea of having older characters as main characters in this series, and I cannot wait to finally get around to reading these books. Next up is one that needs no explanation from me, but that is this stunning edition of The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien. The Hobbit is my favourite book of all time. I absolutely love it. I probably don't have to remind you guys of my love for The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and Middle-earth in general. They truly are the books and the films that have gotten me out of the worst ever places. They're the books and the films that I turn to when I want to feel happy. If I'm feeling sad, I will pick them up. If I'm a little bit unsure about what I want to read, I will always turn to those. And if you have been following me for a while, you'll know that I do have a collection of Tolkien books which does feature different editions of his works. And so when I saw that this edition of The Hobbit was coming out, I didn't have to think twice before pre-ordering it. For those of you who don't know, in The Hobbit we follow Bilbo Baggins, who lives a very sheltered life in the Shire. However, one day when Gandalf the Grey rocks up at his door, his life is turned upside down because Gandalf the Grey is a wizard and he is working with Thorin Oakenshield, who is the Prince of the Dwarves, in order to help the dwarves reclaim their homeland that was taken over by a dragon. So this group of characters ultimately come together to set off on a quest to try and reclaim the homeland, and Bilbo does have to face a lot of difficult situations along the way, but also whilst finding love and enjoyment in the journey and being with this group of characters as well. It is such a wholesome book. It is such a fantastic book to get into Tolkien's world, and it is one that I would highly recommend to everyone of all ages. It is just a brilliant adventure story with a found family trope. It has magic, dragons, everything that you would want in a book, and as I've mentioned, I'm going to be extremely happy when this one rocks up on my door because it just looks so beautiful, and I'm so happy to be adding it to my collection. Next up we have another beautiful edition, and that is of Circe by Madeline Miller. Now I believe that this edition is the 5th anniversary edition. You may be able to see Circe just behind me here, but that is the standard edition hardcover, and this one is the beautiful anniversary edition, as I just mentioned. Now I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I don't really love the colour of this one, especially when you compare it to the special edition of the Song of Achilles, which I do actually have here. It is this beautiful edition. I absolutely love it, and I just feel like these two aren't gonna match. They're very different colours, and I just feel like it's going to be too much of a big contrast. Let me know what you guys think though, but of course I have pre-ordered Circe because this is one of my favourite books of all time, and so of course I needed to get my hands on this stunning edition. In this book we do follow our main character Circe, and one day she is actually cast out of Olympus and put on an island to live in isolation. Being so isolated on the island of Aiaia, Circe finds that she does now have the time to hone her skills and refine her craft, and throughout the years she does actually encounter a lot of figures that we are familiar with from the Greek myths, such as Hermes, Daedalus, I feel like is how you say this name as well. We see the ship that's carrying the Golden Fleece, and we do see Odysseus as well. As her power increases and her knowledge grows, Circe must make the ultimate choice to decide whether she belongs with the deities that she was cast out of or with the mortals that she has come to love. Once again, this is a fantastic story. I would highly recommend you give it a go and listen to the audiobook if you can, because that's how I first consumed the story and it's what made me fall in love with it. It is so beautifully told. It is of course a feminist retelling of Circe's story, so we do see a lot of what is going on with her after she has been ignored for so many years, and it's just a very beautiful, powerful novel that truly is one of the best things that I've ever read. The next book we have is Autumn Chills, which is a collection of Agatha Christie's autumn-themed murder mysteries. I have previously mentioned my love for Agatha Christie, and what better time to get this book than as we are going into autumn. I am hoping I can read this towards the end of September or the start of October, just because I feel like it will give me those lovely autumnal vibes. And even though I'm not a massive fan of short stories, I have read some of Agatha Christie's other short stories, and I do tend to get on with them, because one of the things things that I enjoy the most about Agatha Christie's writing, is that she manages to create such a complex murder mystery within such a short amount of pages, and that again works in her favour in the short stories because you are left feeling satisfied. And yes, I cannot wait to get to this book. It is a beautiful hardcover edition as well, and I am actually slowly collecting the books that match it, so this will fit in nicely in my collection, and I can't wait to see it with all of the other books that I currently own. And then the last book with the release date of the 14th of September is Fall of Ruin and Wrath by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now, I've actually never read a book by Jennifer L. Armentrout, but ever since I have been aware of BookTube and Bookstagram, her books have been everywhere. I can't quite remember the sci-fi series she wrote. Was it called Lux? Honestly, I almost bought every single book in that series, even though I'm not a sci-fi lover, just because of the hype around them, and Jennifer L. Armentrout has been on my radar ever since. I feel like most people know her from her latest series, which is From Blood and Ash. That is one that I am debating reading, however I don't own any of the books currently, but I did want to pre-order this one because it does sound amazing, and I do feel like it is going to be a good introduction for me into Jennifer L. Armentrout's writing style and her novel structure as well. This is another one where I'll read you the synopsis for. It says, the best-selling author of the Blood and Ash series weaves another saga of addictive fantasy romance as a baron, a prince, and a girl whose intuition never fails find themselves at the mercy of dark forces massing outside the city gates. She lives by her intuition. He feeds on her pleasure. Long ago, the world was destroyed by gods. Only 9 cities were spared. Separated by vast wilderness teeming with monsters and unimaginable dangers, each city is now ruled by a guardian. Royalty who feed on mortal pleasure. Born with an intuition that never fails, Callista knows her talents are of great value to the power-hungry of the world, so she lives hidden as a courtesan of the Baron of Archwood. In exchange for his protection, she grants him information. When her intuition leads her to save a travelling prince in dire trouble, the voice inside her blazes with warning and promise. Today he'll bring her joy, one day he'll be her doom. When the Baron takes an interest in the prince, and the prince takes an interest in Callista, she becomes the latter's temporary companion. But the city simmers with rebellion, and with knights and monsters at her city gates, and a hungry prince in her bed, intuition may not be enough to keep her safe. Callista must choose. Follow her intuition to safety, or follow her heart to her downfall. Fall of Ruin and Wrath is a breathtaking fantasy with high stakes, magic, and a searing enemies to lovers romance. I honestly don't need to know too much more than that, guys. I have really loved reading fantasy romance lately, and it's definitely a genre that I'm excited to read more from. I have only touched the surface, so I feel like this is another good book to read to familiarise myself with the genre, and yeah, I just feel like it's going to be a really good time. The plot sounds amazing, the characters sound very intriguing, and you guys know I love a magic system, so this should be a really good book for me, and that is why I have pre-ordered it. The next book I've pre-ordered is The Fragile Threads of Power by B.E. Schwab, and this one comes out on September 26th. I'm so excited for this one, you guys, because it is the newest book set in the world of the A Darker Shade of Magic trilogy, and I'm even more excited because I was actually sent an ARC of this book. Can you guys believe it? I honestly can't. I haven't started it yet, and as I mentioned, we are into September already. However, I am reading 2 set books a week for September, and then what I'm going to do is read this kind of in between. So I think I'm going to section it off and then read as much as I can in the weeks where I've hopefully read all that I need to read. Now, because this is a continuation of a series, I again can't tell you too much about this book in particular, but in A Darker Shade of Magic we follow Kell, who is an Antari, meaning that he is a magician of sorts. Now, Kell actually lives in a place called Red London, and there are 3 other Londons that he is able to travel to as an Antari. Those are White London, Grey London, and Black London. However, Black London has essentially been cordoned off. It's a very dark place that no one goes to because some awful things happen there. Now, Kell is actually part of the royal family. He's like an adopted son of sorts to the king and queen, and he is the best friend of Prince Rai. He is given royal duties to perform. However, on the side, he does go to the different Londons and takes relics out of each different one, and what he does is he actually sells them illegally, which is of course a very risky thing to do. Now, one day when an exchange exchange for some of these items goes awry, Kel actually flees to Grey London, which is essentially our London. It's a London full of mortals who don't possess any magic, and there he meets Delilah Bard, who at first decides to rob him. However, she does then save him from a deadly enemy, and both of their fates are intertwined from this point onwards. But perilous magic is afoot, there is unrest between all the different Londons, treachery lurks around every corner, and to save all of the worlds, they need to make sure that they stay alive. This is a fantastic world. It's so complex, it's so addicting as well. You just get sucked into this world and you don't want to stop reading. Of course, I have read the core trilogy. I am extremely excited to see what goes on in this new series, but boy am I intimidated because this book is massive. I think it's about 600 pages. Yeah, 630 pages, guys. So be prepared for this brick of a book to land on your doorstep, but I'm very excited for this one. I can't wait to finally start it, and I will of course share my thoughts on it with you guys once I have read it. Another book that's coming out on September 26th is The Art of Destiny by Wesley Chu, which is the sequel to The Art of Prophecy. Now, this is a book that actually arrived for me today. I ordered it off of Vinted, and I did get the Waterstones exclusive edition. This is a series that I've just heard amazing things about, and I want to know what it's all about, guys. So I'm impatient, and I decided to pre-order the second book, even though I've only just got my hands on the first book, but I have gotten the Waterstones edition to match, and I couldn't be more excited. Now, in the first book, all I know is that we follow a character who is prophesized to save the world, essentially. However, apparently the prophecy seems to have gotten the wrong person, and so even against all of the odds, our main character does have to try his best to succeed and make sure that the world is actually saved. And then it just says, to save the kingdom, an unlikely band of heroes rise. Taishi, an old grandmaster who swore her days of battle were over, Sally, a warrior re-evaluating her allegiances, and Kisami, an assassin with questionable values. Together, the four embark on a journey more wondrous than any prophecy could foresee. I've mentioned earlier to you guys with The Hobbit, I love a book that features an adventure. The found family trope as well is something that I really do adore, and I am very interested to see what happens when a prophecy goes wrong, because that is not something that we see often, and I just feel like this is going to be a very fun time. So that is why I've pre-ordered the second book, and I'm hopefully going to start this series in 2024. The next book that I would like to talk about is Divine Might, Goddesses in the Greek Myth by Natalie Haynes. This one comes out on the 28th of September, and as you can imagine, it is a book all about the goddesses in the Greek myths. I have talked about my love of Greek mythology earlier, so I'm not going to do so again here, but Natalie Haynes is a fantastic author. I do own some of her books on my Greek myth shelves, which you may be able to see behind me, and this is just one of her latest books. Now, this is a non-fiction, which is a little bit different for me, but I'm always up for learning as much as I can about the Greek myths and the women of Greek myths in particular, so this is going to be a lovely book for me to have, and I can't wait to read Natalie Haynes' examinations of all of the different goddesses. Another book coming out on the 28th of September is The Scarlet Veil by Shelby Mahurin, and I believe that this is a companion novel to the Serpent and Dove trilogy. Now, I do actually have the first book to hand here. I read this about 2 years ago now, and I really did love it. I haven't carried on with the rest of the books in the series though, but I do want to make it a priority in 2024, and you guys know me by now. I am terrified of missing out on matching editions, and so that is why I have pre-ordered the new book, and hopefully they are the same size and everything, because this is a shorter hardcover and my collector's brain could just not deal with that. But in this one, all I remember is that we follow a witch and a witch hunter, and they somehow get forced into an arranged marriage, and then they have to live with each other and the knowledge that one of them is a witch and one of them is a witch hunter. Essentially, it's enemies to lovers, and I did really enjoy it. There is also a bigger conflict going on in the world, and that is between the church and the witches. I think that the church is trying to banish all of them and get rid of them, and the witches are of course standing up for themselves and trying to just live their lives, and so being hunted and persecuted by these witch hunters is definitely sowing some seeds of anger, and I feel like that is just going to get worse as the series goes on. As I mentioned, I've only read the first book. I did love it though, and I can't wait to actually see where the story goes and what happens with our characters, but that is why I've pre-ordered this one, and I can't wait to add it to my collection and eventually get to it. And then the last book coming out on the 28th of September is A Multitude of Dreams by Mara Rutherford. Honestly, all I know about this one is that it is inspired by Edgar Allan Poe, so I knew it was going to be a gothic atmospheric book, and then I saw the cover and that just sold me, guys, because look at how beautiful this is. It's giving me the perfect autumnal October vibes, and that is honestly the main reason why I did go ahead and pre-order this. Again, I will give you the synopsis for this. It says, the bloody plague is finally past, but what fresh horror lies in its wake? Princess Imogen of Gosland has lived a sheltered life for 3 years at the boarded up castle. She and the rest of its inhabitants safe from the bloody Mori Roja plague that's ravaged the kingdom. But Princess Imogen has a secret, and as King Stuart descends further into madness, it's at great risk of being revealed. Rations dwindle each day, and unhappy murmurings threaten to crack the facade of the years-long charade being played within the castle walls. Nico Mott once enjoyed a comfortable life of status, but the plague took everyone and everything from him. If not for the generosity of a nearby lord, Nico may not have survived the Mori Roja's aftermath. But does owing Lord Crane his life means he owes him his silence? When Lord Crane sends Nico to search for more plague survivors in the castle, Nico collides with a princess who wants to break out. They will each have to navigate the web of lies they've woven if they're going to survive the nightmares ahead. Doesn't that just sound amazing, you guys? I have not read anything from Mara Rutherford, I don't think, so again, she will be a new to me author, which is always nice. The premise sounds really intriguing though. I love the setting of the castle as well, and I am definitely interested to see what happens with the plague and whether it has actually died down and left everyone alone now as well. Right, moving on to October releases. The first one I have to talk about is After the Forest by Kel Woods, and this one comes out on the 3rd of October. This one is a fantasy retelling of Hansel and Gretel set in 17th century Germany. Honestly, I don't really need to know too much more than that. I'm already sold. I feel like that is going to be amazing, but it actually follows them years in the future after they have escaped the witch's cottage. And even though I wasn't planning on reading you the synopsis for this one, I think I will because it just sounds so good. It says, almost 20 years have passed since Greta and her brother Hans escaped the old woman's cottage in the Black Forest, but there was no living happily ever after for them. The war has taken its toll on these lands, husbands and sons lost, a country impoverished. When the local baron dies, his cruel, young and beautiful wife raises taxes and a blood tithe, ensuring that those who can't pay off their debts pay through servitude. Wolves are gathering around the village and a group of mercenaries stalk the streets. A black bear has been sighted in the forest, but an encounter with it leaves Greta puzzled by its gentle and peaceful demeanour. Then there are the deaths. Bodies have been found in the woods, their bloods taken, their hearts removed. As the villagers become more desperate, whispers of witchcraft abound. With Hans's gambling debts forcing him to take the blood tithe, only the addictively delicious gingerbread Greta makes, created with the help of a book stolen when they escaped their childhood captor, can offer a way out. But there's a price to pay for using this blood skill, tatter magic, and it could cost Greta everything, unless she can find another way to beat the horrors from her past and find a new path through the darkness. Set in the Black Forest of Württemberg during the mid-17th century, After the Forest is a stunning meld of love story, fairy tale, magic and history, which is sure to appeal to fans of Naomi Novik, Rena Rosner and Kate Forsyth. I've read both Uprooted and Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, and I really love those stories, so if that's anything to go by, I should enjoy this one. You guys know I love my fairy tales and my fairy tale retelling, so this should be a perfect book for me to read, and it's one that I am extremely excited to get to. Another release coming out on the 3rd of October is The Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco, which I believe is the next book in the Kingdom of the Wicked series. Now, once again, I do actually have the first book to hand. This is what it looks like. It's absolutely beautiful, but it's another one that I haven't actually started yet. All I'll tell you guys is the tagline on this first book. It says, 2 sisters, 1 murder, a quest for vengeance that will unleash hell itself. That's all I need to know about this one. Again, I am pre-ordering the next book just because I would like to have a matching set, which is very superficial, I know, but that is just, again, my book collector coming out, and I would rather have it than not have it. So that is why I've pre-ordered this one. I don't know too much about it. I haven't really looked into this book in particular, but I know it's set in that world, and so I would rather not know too much about it before I actually start reading Kingdom of the Wicked. The next book I'm going to talk about is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare, and this one comes out on on the 10th of October. This is Cassandra Clare's first adult fantasy novel, so I'm extremely excited to dive into this one. Of course, I made sure to get the Waterstones exclusive edition of it. I am hoping to get my hands on the Illumicrate edition as well, but this is one that I am so excited about. Cassandra Clare is one of my all-time favourite authors. The Mortal Instruments series was one of the main things that got me into reading, and I have actually met Cassandra Clare since. I met her at YELC last year, which is the Young Adult Literature Convention, and I did film it, and then I also saw her after that as well, discussing the Last Hours trilogy. So I will leave both of those videos linked down below for you guys. Please do check them out though, because I absolutely loved both days. But essentially, she is a favourite author of mine, and so of course I did have to pre-order this one. I'm not going to read you the full synopsis for this one, but the little snippet says, a prince's body double and an outcast with forbidden magic join forces to expose a web of corruption and intrigue in the gilded city of Castellane in the enthralling adult fantasy debut from the author of the best-selling Shadowhunter Chronicles. This is definitely one that I want to dive into without really knowing anything about it. I don't want to know anyone else's opinions, I don't want to be swayed one way or another, so I am just going to read it as soon as I get it and form my own opinions on it, but it is one that I'm so excited for. I believe that it's the start of a new series, however I don't actually know how many books are going to be in this series, but I will of course go ahead and look into that once I receive the book and read it, because it will help me get excited for future releases. The next book I have pre-ordered is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, the Collector's Edition by Holly Jackson. This comes out on the 12th of October, and honestly I wasn't planning on buying this one. However, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is one of my favourite books. It is a murder mystery if you couldn't tell, but it's a YA one, and whilst I don't necessarily love YA murder mystery books, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is fantastic. I do actually have the paperback books for this series, however with them coming out in hardcover and with me loving the story so much, I have just decided to buy myself a copy because again I don't want to miss out and then further on down the line be gutted that I don't own it. So that is one that I have decided to pre-order now. As I mentioned, it is a murder mystery book where we follow Pippa, who is doing a school project, I think it is, and she is actually looking into an old murder case that occurred in her village where someone was suspected of being the murderer and took their own life. However, she has doubts that this person did actually commit the murder, so she sets about trying to solve the mystery. Of course, she meets a lot of people along the way, including the assumed murderer's brother, Ravi, and together they kind of combine forces to try and figure out the truth, because Pippa obviously wants to find out the truth just to satisfy her detective brain, and Ravi wants to find out the truth because his family has been tainted by this case ever since it happened, and he wants to clear his brother's name and his family's involvement as well. So that is essentially the main plot of it. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. It is another one though that I would highly recommend to everyone. I have specifically recommended it to a few people and they have come back and told me that they loved it, so it's definitely a book for everyone, and I do hope you consider looking at it. But yeah, this beautiful edition is coming out. I couldn't say no, and I'm very excited for it to be released so that I can put it onto my shelves. The next book is one that I haven't actually pre-ordered, and that is because I want to try and get my hands on the Fairy Loot edition of this book, but that is A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber, which comes out on October 24th. I do have the Fairy Loot editions of the first two books. I believe that first book is called Once Upon a Broken Heart, and so of course I would like this next book in the same edition so that I do have a matching set. Now unfortunately this is one that I can't tell you anything about because I believe it's a companion series to Caraval by Stephanie Garber, which is a book that I read years and years ago, and I couldn't tell you anything about it even if I tried, to be honest with you guys. It was kind of like an Alice in Wonderland type world. That is basically all I can remember. So that is due a reread, and as soon as I do read that trilogy I can then dive into this next one. But as I mentioned, I wanted the Fairy Loot edition. I am not sure when I will actually receive it. I feel like it's going to be a few months after placing my order, so hopefully I actually do manage to place an order, because I have tried getting some Fairy Loot books recently and have not been successful, but hopefully I can, and then I can add it to my shelves until the time comes where I can actually actually read it. The next book I have to talk about is The Scarlet Alchemist by Kylie Lee Baker, and this one comes out on the 25th of October. I am going to read you the snippet of this because it's what drew me in. It says, a dark YA fantasy duology set in an alternate Tang Dynasty China, where alchemy has led to income inequality as the rich eat gold to archive eternal youth, and a poor biracial girl with the ability to raise the dead gets caught up in the dangerous political games of the royal family. That is exactly what I need. I am a bit hesitant reading YA fantasy at the minute just because I've not had the best time with them recently, but this just sounds amazing. I'm really hoping it's going to give me exactly what I want, and I think it's just so interesting, like people eating gold. That is so privileged. So this is one that I pre-ordered as soon as I heard about it. I feel like it's going to be a really good time. It is only a duology as well, so I don't have to commit to reading a lot of books in a series, which is always a good change, and I'm just hoping once again that this is going to be a good time. Of course, with it being a YA fantasy, I feel like it's going to be easier to read as well. It's not going to be as dense and as information heavy, so I'm just hoping for a good time with this one. I like the fact that it's set in China as well because we don't really see too much of that, and yeah, I am all in all very excited for this one and I can't wait for it to come out. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Forest Grimm by Catherine Purdy, and this one comes out on October 26th. Again, this is one I don't really know too much about. All I know is that it's a dark fairy tale book, and again, I was sold. It seems like this is a book about a book as well, where once upon a time, villagers would whisper their desires to the Book of Fortunes and its pages would reveal how to obtain them. Of course, all was well until someone used the book for evil, and the Forest Grimm snatched the book away and hid it. Our main character wants to reverse the curse that the Forest Grimm then put on her village as a kind of punishment, and she sets off into the forest to try and accomplish something that no one has been able to do so far. As I mentioned earlier, I love me a good fairy tale, and this one definitely has those vibes, so hopefully it's going to be an enjoyable read that I can fall into and lose myself in it completely. And I do like that once again it is a darker tale as well, which will hopefully mean that it will be very atmospheric. Right, moving into our November releases, the first book I have is my most anticipated book of the year, and that is of course Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This one comes out on the 7th of November and I have been counting down the days, guys. I am so excited to read this one. I read the first book, Fourth Wing, last month and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it ever since. Once again, I do have the first book to hand. This is beautiful, guys. I'm really sad though because I missed out on the Waterstones exclusive edition of this and the Fairy Loot exclusive edition of this, so I do just have the standard cover. However, I am going to try and get my hands on the reprint of the Fairy Loot exclusive edition because I just need it in my life, you guys. But as Iron Flame is the second book in a series, in Fourth Wing we follow our main character Violet, and she has been training her whole life to become a scribe. Since her father's death though, her mother has had different plans for her. Her mother is actually a general for the Dragon Riders, and she forces Violet to go to the Dragon Riders quadrant instead of the Scribe quadrant. This is a completely different life to what Violet was expecting. The Dragon Riders quadrant is brutal. You have to compete in a lot of trials in order to get to the stage where you can actually bond with a dragon, and even then there's not a chance that a dragon will actually accept you. And the fact that she does also have a chronic illness means that she is weaker than the other candidates because her body is hurt more easily, and so in certain trials she is at a massive disadvantage. Now, not only that, General Sorrengail was actually responsible for executing the parents of a lot of these children. As I mentioned, she is a general, and when rebels threatened an uprising, she had them executed. And so not only does Violet have to worry about these trials, she also has to worry about the people that actually want to kill her in order to get revenge on her mother. That's all I'm going to say for this one. If you haven't read this book yet, what are you doing, guys? Please go ahead and pick it up. I was so scared to dive into this one because of the hype, but as you can tell, I absolutely loved it. It's a new favourite book of mine. The world is so intricate, it's very dangerous, high stakes. We have dragons in here which are amazing, and the dragons that we follow in here are some of my new favourite characters ever. Not only that, actually, we do have an enemies to lovers situation here as well, which is fantastic, let me tell you. So as I mentioned, I'm counting down the days till I can hold Iron Flame in my hands, and I will be reading it as soon as possible. I may even reread Fourth Wing as well, because I just had such an amazing time with this book. And if you would like to see a vlog of that from me, please do let me know, because I definitely would love to do that, but I just feel like I'm going to be an absolute mess reading that second book. The next book that I am very excited for is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez, and this one comes out on the 14th of November. Again, I'm going to read you the snippet for this one because this is what sold me. I am so excited to get to it because of this. It says, the mummy meets death on the Nile in this lush, immersive historical fantasy set in 19th century Egypt, filled with adventure, arrivals to lovers' romance, and a dangerous race. I'm sold, you guys. I don't need to know anything else. The Mummy is one of my favourite films of all time, and Death on the Nile is one of my favourite books of all time. So combine both of those and give me an enemies to lovers. I'm sold. I am also going to Egypt next year, which is so exciting. I genuinely can't believe that this is happening. And so this is a book that I don't think I'm going to read this year, but definitely next year, because I'm planning on doing a reading vlog before going to Egypt, where I do read books set in Egypt in order to get me even more excited to go. I just feel like it's going to be an amazing book, which is why I have, of course, pre-ordered it. Next up is one that I honestly don't know if I should have bought, but that one is Shatter by Tahira Mafi, but it is this stunning collector's edition. Now, I do have the first 4 books in the Shatter series. I know that there are quite a lot of books out in that series now. However, Tom actually got me those first 4 books for my birthday 3 years ago, and whilst I did read the first book, I never carried on with the rest of the series. Saying that though, I did really enjoy my experience reading the first book, and I feel like it's a very bingeable series, so I am just going to have to force myself to one day sit down and power through. I believe that the first 3 books are a separate trilogy, and then the next 3 books are a trilogy as well, and then there are some novellas in between. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look at the reading order, but this beautiful edition, guys, I saw it, I had to buy it. I do know that I enjoyed that first book at least, so I don't feel too guilty in buying this edition, but Tahira Mafi is lovely. I have followed her for a while and I do like to support her, so I am going to get this edition. Hopefully I can actually read the series next year and see whether it's something that I would want to continue purchasing, but for now I do have the first book ordered, as I mentioned, and yeah, I am excited to see it because it is beautiful. All I can actually remember about this book is that we have our main character Juliet, and her touch is fatal. Now, this is set in a more dystopian world, and we do have the Reestablishment, I believe it was called, who of course want to use her power for some things that aren't necessarily good. So we follow Juliet and 2 other main characters whose names have escaped me right now, as they kind of work together to escape the Reestablishment. I'm probably butchering that synopsis. Please check this out for yourself if you're interested in it, but this is just proving how much I desperately need to reread this book, which I can hopefully do once I get this beautiful edition. But yeah, it's a YA dystopian fantasy-esque series featuring a love triangle. It's definitely on the older side of YA, and by that I mean it came out years ago, so it may not have aged well, we shall see, but I enjoyed my time reading it. This beautiful edition swayed me and I have no self-control and decided to buy it. And then the last book I've pre-ordered in November is The Kingdom of Sweets by Erica Johansson. I am definitely familiar with this author, guys, but I can't for the life of me remember what other books she's come out with, so if you know, please go ahead and comment it. But this has me very excited because it is a retelling of The Nutcracker. Now, I actually am not familiar with the original story of The Nutcracker. The first time I actually heard about it was in the Barbie film, which, no shame, absolutely love it. But I did read Midnight in Everwood last year, which is a Nutcracker retelling, and I really did have a good time with it. For this one, it just says, light and dark, this is the destiny placed upon Natasha and Clara, the birthright bestowed on them by their godfather, the mysterious sorcerer Drosselmeyer. Clara, the favourite, grows into beauty and ease, while Natasha is cursed to live in her sister's shadow. But one fateful Christmas Eve, Natasha gets her chance at revenge, for Drosselmeyer has returned and brought with him the Nutcracker, an enchanted presence which offers entry to a deceptively beautiful world, the Kingdom of Sweets. In this island of snow and sugar, Natasha is presented with a power far greater than Drosselmeyer, the Sugar Plum Fairy, who is also a giver of gifts and a maker of dread-filled bargains. As Natasha Sasha uncovers the dark destiny laid before her birth, she must reckon with powers both earthly and magical and decide to which world she truly belongs. I just feel like that's amazing. It's coming out towards the end of November, as I mentioned, which is the perfect book to take into December. So I'm very excited to put it on my December TBR. It is one that I'm planning on reading because I don't actually have too many wintry, Christmassy books. And so I feel like this is going to be perfect. It's going to give me that fairy tale-esque vibe that I love. And I can't wait to see what actually goes on, because the more Nutcracker retellings that I see and read, the more I fall in love with the story. And so I'm hoping that this is a good one. The cover as well is beautiful, and it is another one that I am extremely excited to get to. And we have now made it to December, guys, and I do only have 2 books here to talk about today. The first book is Make Me a Liar by Melissa Landers, and this one is coming out on December 5th. Now, all I really know about this one is that it's a mystery thriller type of book, but it does have different elements to it. So from what I can gather, our main character can jump from body to body, and she has always used this power for good. However, when someone turns that power on her, they actually commit a murder in her body, and she is caught red-handed and has to get herself out of this situation, essentially. That sounds crazy. I'm here for it. I don't really want to know too much more about it because I just feel like it's going to be bizarre, but as I mentioned, I have pre-ordered it. I will be reading it. I will let you guys know my thoughts, and I just feel like it's going to be such an interesting concept that has never been done before, so I'm very, very excited for it. And then the final book I'm going to talk about today is The Ruined by Renee Ahdieh, which also comes out on December 5th. Now, this is the 4th book in the Beautiful series by Renee Ahdieh. I don't know if there's a series name for it, but this was one of my favourite books of the year that I read it, and I can't for the life of me remember when that was, but it was definitely a while ago because we are on to book 4 of the series. In this one though, we are set in New Orleans in 1872, and we follow our main character Celine as she does travel to New Orleans from Paris, where she soon becomes embroiled in the city's glitzy underworld. She is especially drawn to a group called Le Coeur de Lion and is soon captivated by all the different members. However, when a body is uncovered in their lair, Celine is forced to battle her growing attraction to the group's leader Sebastian and her suspicions about his guilt as well, because she is somehow convinced that he is involved as this body popped up in their lair. But soon more bodies are discovered, New Orleans becomes gripped by terror, and the serial killer now seems to have Celine in his sights. And it just says here, but when she finally takes matters into her own hands, she finds herself caught in the midst of an age-old feud between the darkest creatures of the night, where the price of forbidden love is her life. This is such an amazing book, guys. You actually get the serial killer's perspective throughout this as well, which is something that I've never seen done before, and it is phenomenal. It is also a paranormal story where we have vampires and I believe werewolves as well. This, as I mentioned, was a favourite of mine. I'm desperate to reread it. I did read the second book, but I haven't read the 3rd book, so I would love to do a reread of these and complete all the books that are out. I'm not sure if this is a quartet. I feel like it's going to be, but a lot of stuff happened in the 2nd book that I just wasn't prepared for, and I feel like that's why I'd never carried on with the 3rd book. I just wasn't mentally prepared for that, so I am definitely due a reread. I cannot wait to dive back into this world and see what actually happens with these characters, because it was insane, you guys. And yeah, that is why I've pre-ordered the next one, and again, I can't wait to finally get to it. So there we have it, you guys. Those are all of the books that I've pre-ordered from September to December 2023. I honestly can't believe that we are nearing the end of the year already. It is absolutely crazy to me, but at least I'll have some good books coming my way to get me through these colder months. Please do let me know if any of these were on your radar. If not, let me know if I've convinced you to put them on your radar. I personally love watching these types of videos. I love finding new books to add to my pre-orders, but it's safe to say I won't be ordering any more now. I have way too many that are on their way to me. As you can see, my shelves are already full, so I am debating my life choices, but I'm a book collector. I'm very excited for all the books that are coming out in the next few months, and I really do hope that this video has been helpful for you guys and that you can find some new favourites as well. If you have made it this far through into the video and would like to let me know that you're still here, please go ahead and comment a calendar emoji down below. We're nearing the end of the year and I'm definitely counting down to Halloween and Christmas, so I feel feel like that is somehow a fitting emoji. I say it all the time, but seeing you guys comment the emoji of the video truly does mean the world to me. So if you are still here but don't have anything in particular that you would like to say, please go ahead and do that now. As well as that, please don't forget to click the like button if you like this video and the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content from me. But that is it for me today, guys. Thank you once again for watching. It truly does mean the world to me, and I will see you soon in my next video. Goodbye!